also, one of the things that we were supposed to do was we create a culture of cooperation. And I think that we can certainly say 100% that we succeeded in that by the individuals that we've met and we interact with. As I come in the door, I see some of my colleagues that, again, have become our friends. Another point that we talked about was we would conduct informal educational problems, or Marie always says CIT light, so to speak, where we trained our police officers during annual updates. Also the dispatchers were trained here because they are the first point of contact. And we created an advisory board to monitor the progress, and as Chief Duffy said, to look at strengths, to look at weaknesses, to facilitate things that maybe were falling through the cracks. So that's basically what the program is. It's a specialized police-based program where officers have additional training. They're not therapists, they're not supposed to be therapists. They have a specific, finite, narrow function, and that's what they stay with. And we just hope and feel that that's just an additional resource that we have to get persons who are experiencing mental health crisis and are suffering maybe in crisis from something with an intellectual disability, to get them into the system where they can receive the appropriate treatment, instead of, from a police standpoint, continually responding to the same residences on the same type of calls, where there's injury to the police officer, where there's injury to the consumer. And many of you, we may call on some of you and your expertise to even serve as a presenter in our program, because that's what we've been utilizing, all local presenters who have an expertise in their area, whether it's legal aspects or pharmacology or whatever the case may be. So again, thank you very much, and it was a pleasure having an opportunity to address you today. Thank you.
Before we get to the break, I want to touch on something that Ray Hayes alluded to earlier about an initiative between the CIT and the Advocacy Alliance. And that's what happens after there's CIT involvement that doesn't end up in incarceration or hospitalization. What we offer then is certified peer support services. And we have with us here today Carl Mosier, who's a certified peer specialist. And Carl, I'm just wondering if you could talk to us a little bit about what certified peer support services is, what it aims to do, and what your role is in that regard.
Certified peer specialist is basically a consumer of mental health services. I've been in recovery from a co-occurring disorder for 12 years now, and I'm doing pretty good in my recovery. And as a peer specialist, I get specially trained. It's a 75-hour training to just kind of work with peers one-on-one to do whatever goals they want to work on. It could be work on socialization, different things like that. The program you had talked about, the intervention with our agency, is a pilot program. And what that aims to do is just to maybe connect a person that might not be connected with service, or just give them a person that they can call. A peer specialist would call a person that hasn't been arrested or has been put in, hasn't been in the hospital, and we would just connect with them. We'd offer them peer support services, or connect them with Scranton Counseling or NHS or something if they're not connected with counseling somewhere. We just do an initial phone call for the pilot. If we get them to sign on as for peer support services, then we would start meeting with them on an individual basis and work up a recovery plan and, you know, whatever goals that they want to work on. Good? That's good. Thank you.
As Chief Duffy and Ray Hayes were talking, I made a couple notes, and I'm going to direct questions to you. I'm wondering, and this is coming from a family's point of view, if there's a situation arising in the household, and it seems like police involvement is going to be necessary, would a family member have the ability to make the call to the police and request a CIT officer to come to the scene?
Yes, they can. Okay. Generally speaking, as I said about the point of dispatch, that the dispatcher many times will try and glean as much information as they can to see if it fits within the criteria of a CIT call. However, that would just be actually facilitating the police's ability to send an officer, because you're already saying that an individual is in crisis, so they can request that, and then we actually will aid dispatch, because then they don't have to go through asking so many questions regarding the situations that they're. Yes, so they can in fact do that. Yes, request the PID officer.
Before we get to break, I just want to touch on a couple of things. We asked that a presentation about the Scranton Area Crisis Intervention Team and Lackawanna County Mental Health Court be communicated today, because they really do highlight the systematic change that has taken place in the criminal justice system in Lackawanna County. And that was communicated here today, I think, by far and away. So we offer that as just evidence of change that we have here in our community, and that we're so fortunate to have. We are going to break at this time. I would ask that the questions that you have been able to generate, that you have for our panelists, when we come back at 10:30 with our Q&A portion of the day, please put them in the green baskets that you see here for any one of the Advocacy Alliance employees. So we'll come back at 10:30. Thank you. Everyone, please find your seats so we can begin the question and answer portion of the day. Thank you. So we've seen that there are systematic transformations that are happening within Lackawanna County, within the city of Scranton, regarding the court system, law enforcement, and now I'm going to kind of engage the resource panel and start with Sal Santoli from Scranton Counseling to talk a little bit about how, as a provider agency, your agency has changed and evolved to kind of meet the needs of the courts, meet the needs of the law enforcement as they've developed themselves.
Good morning, everyone. First, let me apologize if I'm not very well prepared. I got this question about 3.5 minutes ago. I think Judge Girallo is being pretty modest in his presentation this morning. What he and Judge Barres has done has tremendously changed the landscape of not only the incarceration piece, but the overall care piece of consumers in Lackawanna County, in conjunction with our parent, as I call them, Lackawanna Susquehanna Mental Health, ID, EI, Behavioral Services, and Community Care, which is our Health Choices managed care entity under the overall guidance of NBHCC. What Judge Barres and Judge Girallo has done, they created an environment that, as a community, we weren't able to do for all the years we've been practicing. They have found a way to get all the agencies to come together and do service planning and individual planning for every individual in the mental health court system, in the co-occurring court system, and the drug system, which is kind of neat. You heard him talk about Goodwill and Scranton Counseling Center and NHS and all the other living facilities in the area. Truly, that takes the whole plan and puts the coordination of care together. And that's an unusual feat, and I think it's probably unusual still in the state of Pennsylvania. What that has done for Scranton Counseling Center, certainly we've gotten busier on different things. You know, there's so many different problem-solving courts, and we have workers attached to the problem-solving courts. We're in the Veterans Court, and the Reentry Court, and the Reunification Court, and the Drug Court, and the DUI Court, and so forth. But I think the two things that we've been very excited to be involved with was the Mental Health Treatment Court and now the co-occurring court. You know, and that is in conjunction again with our judicial system, but with community care and NBHCC and the county. Their data is being tracked. You know, when we talk about co-occurring stuff, we're doing a quality improvement plan with our county office now that deals with the problem-solving court, particularly co-occurring. And looking at employment and looking at residential living, and this is a stable living situation. So we started that process, we're monitoring that process. So there's a lot of exciting things that have occurred. We've been involved in the CIT process from the very beginning. One of our workers, Kristen Simpson, works very closely, I think, with the rest of the board and with Marie, and I think Marie and Kristen have a lot of responsibility of coordinating the trainings and putting the actual presenters together and trying to reach out to all the different law enforcement agencies. You know, Dixon City's been involved, the state police have been involved, so it's been a very nice project that's going forward. So I think from that perspective, we try to be as involved as we can, and we try to be as helpful as we can to our consumers, because truly that's why we're all here. You know, to do the best we can for our consumers in a very difficult environment.
Thanks. Ernie Laskowski from Northwestern Human Services does a lot with crisis intervention. And Ernie, I'm wondering if you can just talk to us a little bit about the general concepts of crisis intervention and how it kind of interplays and interfaces with the criminal justice system and things that we've heard about today.
How much time do we have?
I know you can take us till the 12 o'clock hour, but say 5 minutes or so.
Tomorrow?
Yeah, sure.
Sorry. I'm very passionate about the crisis intervention program. From myself, from NHS, and also from Scranton Counseling, we have the security net for crisis intervention 24 hours, 7 days a week. And that's the suicide prevention hotline. Scranton Counseling does the lower Lackawanna County, NHS does upper Lackawanna County, Susquehanna County, and Wayne County's crisis intervention program. And I say I'm passionate about it because we really, really make a difference. When we do the trainings for our crisis staff, it is to become the most important person in that person's life when they're calling in for crisis. So when that person's calling in, it may be for some small things such as can't sleep, or as much as suicidal or homicidal. And we take every call extremely personally and try to give as much service as we possibly can. We've done resiliency and recovery as our motto way before that became the typical for today. We've done that for years and years and years because it's always based on what can we do to support whoever it is in crisis, whether it's a person who's in crisis or calling for someone else in crisis. So we do that 24 hours a day. We'll do it by phone, or we can go to an emergency room situation after hours to evaluate to see if a person is in need of a hospitalization. We'll facilitate that. And we'll try to get out into the community. We really don't do that as often as we would like to. If we had more resources, more crisis workers, it would be much better for us to do that, because really meeting the people where they are is the key to getting them to be the most comfortable. What we try to do is keep people out of the hospital as much as possible and try to provide whatever supports that are there for them. So if we can initialize those supports and help them to feel empowered in some way, then we've done our job. There's been times where someone has said to me, you know, if you remember a few years ago you saved my life by saying this certain thing. And I go back to them and just say that, well, I said the same thing that your therapist may have been saying to you for the last 5 years. You were ready to hear it at that time. And it makes the big difference, because it's not something magically that we're doing, but we're there at the right time when a person is in crisis. And that's what makes me so passionate about my job. So that's what we do, and I hope we've done a good job for everybody else. I've been honored to be a part of the training team for the CIT program, so it's really been a pleasure to work with everybody here, and the amount of energy that you get from that CIT is incredible. Thank you.
Thanks. Jessica Spansberg joins us from DATS. And Jessica, I know your agency plays a pretty critical role in the mental health court and all the other problem-solving courts, for that matter, co-occurring and drug and alcohol DUI court. So I'm wondering how your agency has changed since this kind of injection of transformation to a more recovery model of services.
Do you want me to stand up
We
over?
can do whatever you want, Jessica, whatever you're comfortable with.
I know over the year, well, I'll just say for the past 4 going on 5 years, I've kind of been, my main role was never, until recently, it's all drug court now. We had really only involvement with the regular drug treatment court, and that has grown immensely over the years to the point that now I'm in every one of the treatment courts. And that's pretty much my main role, is the link between treatment and all these different service providers. We've really departmentalized over the years a lot. I mean, we have a women-specific program, a co-occurring track. We deal a lot more with these agencies than we ever have, and work a lot more closely with them, which I think is great.